Frank. Thank you for joining us again for another episode of Frankly Speaking. It's been a little while since
It
our
has.
last check-in.
It has been, yeah.
But spring is here. We're sitting outside. It is Earth Month right now. But I wanted to ask you, I know near my house the grass is just growing like gangbusters, but are you a gardener?
Yeah, my wife and I are both gardeners. We enjoy it. It's sort of mental therapy. It's good to get outside. I also, oddly enough, I like yard work. It is a break from what we do normally during the day, and so kind of a mindless approach to things, but enjoy gardening, fruits and vegetables mainly. I have some grapes in the backyard.
Is anything new this year coming out of the ground?
Not yet,
okay.
Other than weeds. This is that time of year when weeds grow, so I'm trying to get through that.
Okay. Well, it's like I said, it's been a little while since we checked in, but one of the big things that's been happening recently are the discussions on EWEB's energy supply.
Yeah.
There's been, the board received some information recently from staff about the contract options with the Bonneville Power Administration. So first of all, what's going on here? What's going to happen? What are our contract options with them?
Yeah, this is the contract we have right now with Bonneville started in 2011. It expires in 2028, but they have a requirement to get customers signed up with a new contract by the end of this year, and that will take effect officially in 2028 when the other contract ends. We have a number of different product choices that we can select from Bonneville. Those include putting more or less burden on EWEB versus Bonneville, specifically around looking at how we meet our capacity issues, which is you don't ever really supply energy at a flat level. Best analogy I heard was you can't fly through the mountains at average altitude. So we have to be able to add more or less energy depending on what our load calls for. There are several products available from Bonneville. One of them is called, I'll give you kind of a couple of the extremes. One of them is called load following. That's where we have a certain amount of supply ourselves. Bonneville basically supplies a significant portion of the rest of it. And then as load goes up and down, they manage that up and down. In another product, we still get a certain allotment from Bonneville, but then we are responsible for managing the ups and downs of load that are presented by our customers. So different degrees of control versus risk with Bonneville and or EWEB.
Yeah, it's so easy to get into the weeds so fast on this topic. Yeah. Why is it important? Why do we need to be paying attention to this?
Well, it's important for both reliability, quality of service, and also, we're talking about a contract that over the 20-year lifespan ranges somewhere between the 2.3 and 2.8 billion dollars for our particular community, and so huge financial impact, huge impact as far as the organization's ability to meet load in the future. Has an impact on whether and how much flexibility we have for economic development and growth, and all those things could be highly risky, less risky. So it's a decision that because it's long term, you have to try to put on your best forecasting tools and look at the impact long term. So it's got a number of impacts with our electric utility customers.
Yeah, and one of the things we sometimes hear from customers that's kind of related to this topic is they wonder, are we similar to Springfield Utility Board, or different? And we have historically had a different contract with Bonneville than they have. Is there any future in which we become like sub?
No, we actually, so that kind of goes back into the history of EWEB. So we've been in the generation business since our inception back in the early 1900s, 19-teens, when we first started to generate electricity. When Bonneville came along, the Northwest Power Act and the Federal Power Act required them to supply a net requirement because sub at the time, and still they don't have their own generating resources. Bonneville is able to supply 100% full requirements for them. because we have our own generating resources, things like Walterville, Carmen Smith, a number of other resources that we own, Bonneville is only responsible for that net requirement. So we will never be exactly like Sub, although the product that we select will place more or less burden on us versus Bonneville as far as managing those resources.
Yeah, and so as I mentioned, the board heard some financial analysis earlier in April, but what are the puzzle pieces that go into making this kind of big decision?
Yeah, there's probably several. The one obvious one is the value of the contract itself, which we mentioned. The other is the cost of managing the resources. So Bonneville can take on some of that, or EWEB can take on some of that. There is price risk with Bonneville. Bonneville's a federal agency also, and in this day and age, leaning into a federal agency is something you really have to think about what those risks are. And then the flexibility around being able to choose our own resources that might meet certain environmental goals that we have are also part of that. And then the ability to work locally with customers. The contract options with Bonneville present different restrictions or opportunities relative to how we want to approach our local customers, either existing ones today or potentially new ones.
Yeah. So what's next on this? What are the steps as we begin to make a decision?
Well, we've been through a number of steps. We've really, this has been going on for the last couple of years. We've looking at demand side, energy efficiency, conservation. We talked to the board a number of times about the non-financial things that they're interested in, amount of flexibility, where the risk can fall. The next step really is to put forth an initial leaning as to which product we think is the best. We'll do that at the May 6th board meeting. Usually people don't comment until you make a decision, so we'll put an initial decision out there and say this is kind of what we're thinking. We'll see what kind of comments we get. And then we have a major work session with the board in the middle of June, and that's when we'll really kind of say, hey, this is the direction we're going. This is our recommendation. And then in July, the board will sign, hopefully approve and sign, a resolution that authorizes me to work with staff and Bonneville to finalize a contract and execute that contract by the end of the year. And that's a lot of back and forth legal negotiating, but really the board decision and eventually the board resolution is the meeting in July, a couple of check-in points between then.
Yeah. Well, that's a lot happening in the next few months. I want to bring us back to Earth Month, which is right now. Earth Day was just a couple days ago. When you think about EWEB's role in the community, and especially related to sustainability and climate change issues that are top of mind for a lot of folks right now, what is our role on those issues?
Yeah, it's really a number of things. You know, we rely on a number of natural resources to fulfill our mission. Very much dependent on the McKenzie River, for example. The McKenzie River, both our sole source of drinking water presently, but also significant generating resources. We have both an impact on the environment and also an obligation to be good stewards of it. It's amazing the impact that energy has, for example, on the climate. When you look at the energy sector just in general, that could be transportation, it could be fossil fuels, it could be electricity generation. You know, all those things we play a role in on the electric side, as well as impacts on fish and wildlife. Those are important, and then the significant amount of work that we do in the McKenzie Valley as far as protecting our watershed. So when we think about our mission, just in general, both the impact and the reliance we have on natural resources, and therefore having to be long-term stewards of that on behalf of our customers and our community is a significant role. And I actually think that when you look at what EWEB does, we don't just talk about things, we don't just have plans for things, we actually go out and make investments to protect the environment, to supply our products and services within the constraints and obligations that we have, and really have to be proud of the organization for doing that over a long period of time.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and then our final element, what is a team or an individual who's done, some outstanding work in the past month or so that you'd like to give some kudos to?
Like to give kudos to all of them. There's so many opportunities and things that we do. There's two actually that come to mind, probably most recently. One is, this is the time of year we're doing a lot of tree trimming. And so our arborists, our tree crews, we're getting ready for fire season. So we're going through a lot of the system, trying to make sure that it's safe going into summer. That's one group that I'd like to call out and say thank you to. The other one is our purchasing and procurement group. As everybody knows, there's a lot of talk about tariffs. There's supply chains that we're trying to keep track of, and this group is involved in making sure that we have access to supply, but also the prices that we pay, the contracts we have. Managing all that in this environment is incredibly challenging, and so wanted to call out that group as well, and there'll be more groups to call out in the future, I'm sure, because really we do a lot of things here, and a lot of people do a great job. So those two in particular this time.
All right. Well, thank you, Frank, and then until next month, we'll see you then.
Great. Have a nice day.
Thank you.